How's it going, everyone? My name is Derknomicon and I have another Skyrim character build for you today. This is Nocturnal's champion. She walks with the shadows and she is the best thief in all of Skyrim. Nocturnal's champion used to be a pirate on the coast of Hammerfell under the flag of the Fallen Blade. The captain, Rizan, was the most ruthless scoundrel to sail Sros Makai. Eventually, the champion couldn't take much more of the pillaging of villages or sinking of other ships. The champion began to think there had to be an easier way to make gold without bloodshed. One night, after a bountiful withdrawal from a nearby village, or that's what Rizan would have called it, the champion struck a deal with Rizan. With the exchange of all her coins, she wanted her freedom. Rizan smirked but couldn't help to lick his lips from all the gold he was about to gain from this deal. The champion poured them some Balmora Blue as a toast of farewell, but after the drink had hit Rizan's stomach, he felt himself getting way more tipsy than usual. He looks at the champion only to see that she is the one smirking. He begins to call for the guards, but no one shows up. I've given you and your crew a special brew to relax your minds after a long day of pillaging. Don't worry, the effects won't last too long, but long enough for me to take what I can and start a new life. So long, Rizan, she said. Nocturnal's champion would then fill a chest full of gold, jewels, and maps of buried treasure left by the crew all over Tamriel. Then she makes her way off the Fallen Blade and towards a horse she tied to some trees off in the distance. But the horse wasn't alone, to her surprise. A woman in dark gray robes turns to the champion and tells her to travel to Skyrim. There she will find the life that she seeks. The champion disregards the woman's babbling and hands her a few septums. She then climbs on her horse and begins to ride, but is then startled by a murder of crows that flies from behind her, and the laughter of the woman follows. The champion quickly turns around just to only see an empty space where the woman once stood, and the septums laying on the ground. Confused by what had just transpired, the champion decides to listen to the words of the woman of crows, and heads to Skyrim. Alright, now let's get into the details of the build. For the race, we are going to go with the Red Guard, and they start out with +5 to Alteration, Archery, Block, Destruction, and Smithing, along with a +10 in One-Handed. Red Guards also have a natural poison resistance of 50%, and then they can use Adrenaline Rush ability, which grants them 10 times stamina regeneration for 60 seconds once per day. Moving on to the Standing Stones, we will go for the Thief Standing Stone, which will allow Nocturnal's champion to excel at improving her stealth skills 20% faster than normal. After you have played this character for 10 or so levels, I recommend grabbing the Shadow Stone outside of Riften near the Nightingale Hall. This stone allows the user to become invisible for 60 seconds once per day, which is pretty damn excellent for this build if I might add. Next we have the factions, or faction per se, but the choice is really yours. Nocturnal's champion will align herself with none other than the Thieves Guild. This group of cut purses have the same goal in mind as that of our champion here. Get rich, and even more rich. Also, by joining the Thieves Guild, you will eventually come into the service of Our Lady, Nocturnal, the Mistress of the Night. Now, as far as other factions come, it is totally up to you if you want to join them. But when it comes to the Dawnguard DLC, there are pros and cons for joining either the Hunters or the Hunted, and I'll let you decide which side to choose to follow. As for the stats this build will work towards while leveling up, we will be putting 20% into Magicka, 50% into health, and lastly 30% into stamina. Alright, time to go over the gear. Starting from the top, we have the Nightingale Hood, which reduces the spell cost of illusion spells by a certain percentage, the Nightingale Armor, which increases the wearer's stamina by a certain amount of points and increases their frost resistance by a certain percentage. Next we have the Nightingale Gloves, which increases lockpicking and one-handed attacks by a certain percentage. And lastly we have the Nightingale Boots, which muffles the wearer's movements by a certain amount of points. As for the jewelry, the champion will work towards the Locket of St. Jib during the Dawnguard DLC. This amulet increases the wearer's stamina and carrying capacity. As for the ring slot, if you find anything that suits this build, go ahead and use it. To wrap up the gear section, we have the weapons of Nocturnal's champion. For the melee weapon, we will be going for the Nightingale Blade, which absorbs a certain amount of points from your enemy's health and stamina. And for ranged combat, we will be going for the Nightingale Bow, which freezes and shocks the target for a certain amount of points. Now, just to clarify the whole certain amount of points and certain amount of percentage phrasing, the points on your weapons and armor increase the higher your level is when you acquire them, so keep that in mind. Now let's talk about the skills that are part of this build. In the one-handed skill tree, we will get all 5 Armsmen, Fighting Stance, all 3 Bladesmen, and Critical Charge. Under Archery, get all 5 Overdraw, Eagle Eye, 2 points in Steady Hand, all 3 of Critical Shot, Power Shot, Hunter's Discipline, Ranger, Quick Shot, and Bullseye. Under the Light Armor skill tree, all 5 Agile Defender, Custom Fit, Unhindered, Windwalker, Matching Set, and Deft Movement. In the Illusion skill tree, Novice to Expert, Animage, Hypnotic Gaze, Kindred Mage, Aspect of Terror, Rage, Quiet Casting, and Master of the Mind. Under the Sneak skill tree, all 5 Stealth, Backstab, Deadly Aim, Assassin's Blade, Muffled Movement, Lightfoot, Silent Roll, Silence, and Shadow Warrior. In the Pickpocket skill tree, all 5 of Light Fingers, Night Thief, Cut Purse, Extra Pockets, Keymaster, Misdirection, and Perfect Touch. And lastly, we have the Lockpicking skill tree. Novice to Expert, Quick Hands, Golden Touch, Treasure Hunter, Locksmith, and Unbreakable. Now, when it comes to companions, Nocturnal's champion only relies on one, the Shadows. Having someone else stomping around alerting enemies is just plain unprofessional for an agent of Nocturnal. And last on the list we have Spells. In the School of Illusion, we will only be using Pacify to calm all nearby enemies. And then after you complete the Thieves Guild questline and become an agent of Nocturnal, you will grab one of the 3 powers from her, which we will be grabbing Shadow Cloak of Nocturnal, which automatically turns you invisible while you are sneaking for 2 minutes. Alright everyone, that does it for this build. I hope you enjoyed it and give it a try for yourself. Let me know down in the comments what you thought about the build. Did you like it? Dislike it? Have you played this sort of build before? Or, you know what, just come say hi to me. I would like that too. If you like what I do on this channel, consider clicking on the subscribe button and sharing this video or my channel with your friends or family. With that being said, I will see you in the next video.